Helpful for life.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Sugar and spice and everything nice. Ah, seasonings. They make beautiful songs and nursery rhymes, but they really make is beautiful food for my taste buds. All right. Herbs, spices, aromatics, add them all. But wait, it's time for an unsolicited piece of education. What's the difference between an herb and a spice, you might ask? Well, an herb is typically from the flower or leaves of a plant, and you can usually get it either fresh or dried. A spice, on the other hand, is usually from the other parts of the plant, whether it be the seeds or the roots or the bark or some other part. And spices, generally you find dried. Seasoning is kind of a term that's a combination of herbs and spices, and some would maybe argue salt and a couple of other things. The main point of seasoning is to make your food taste better. Whether fresh or dried, the seasonings will take your food from bland to BAM! For an extra level of awesomeness, try toasting your spices in a dry pan for a couple of minutes before you use them. Here are a few tips to help you maximize deliciousness. Don't overdo it. More, different, and more quantity of spices does not always mean better. Mo seasoning does not always mean mo better. Remember that. Sometimes it's better to just stick with a couple of seasonings or spices and let those individual flavors shine. For example, in high-end steak restaurants, usually if they put anything on their steaks at all, it's just salt and maybe some pepper. They let that beefy goodness shine. So it's not all about your seasonings. Your seasonings, you want them to work together well, and you want them to also help amplify the natural flavor of the star ingredient. Do some searches online. Not only can you find pre-made spice blends, but you can also find recipes to mix up your own. You can find some guides on different cuisines and different spice combinations that might be good. Try some stuff out. Here's one website that we really like that highlights the different spices that are in different cuisines across the world. It's by spiceinc.com. I think it's cool because you can say, I want my dish to have a little bit of a Thai flair to it. And then you can grab a couple of the seasonings from the list, throw them in your dish, and enjoy the taste of Thailand. But the coolest thing that we've found is to pay attention when you're cooking and pay attention when you're eating. Not only at your own house, but anytime you go over to someone else's house or you go to a restaurant, pay attention to the flavors. And eventually you may realize that certain seasonings go well with certain types of food. And then you can take that back to your house, and when you're cooking, you can be like, oh yeah, I remember this does go pretty well with that pork, or that does go pretty well with that squash, or whatever it may be. And don't be afraid to experiment. Smell something, taste it. You think it may go good with it? Try a little bit of it. If it didn't work out, just don't add it next time, or add a little less or a little more. Just tweak, always be messing with stuff. Well, that's it for seasonings. Let's dive into the marinades.